Hello and welcome to Pop Culture Shark, a live stream about all things pop culture. I'm Final Monkey,
And I'm Caleb.
and today we have a show that we're both pretty excited about. We are exploring the world of the Chronicles of Narnia, and I am pretty new to the world of Chronicles of Narnia. And I guess Caleb, you've been reading these since you were a kid. Is that right?
Yep. I was second or third grade whenever I first read it. It's whenever the first movie came out. We'll go into my history with Narnia whenever we start that. So
Awesome. We are going to have a special guest, but I think he's having some little technical difficulties. So we will bring him in as when he gets here. But we're getting started. Hello to Tripping Orc, who's already out in the chat. Glad to have
yeah,
him
I'm
here.
I'm so excited that we're talking about Narnia because I remember Orc has the same opinion as the rest of us with the reading order.
Yeah. So we will get to that here in a minute. But before we do that, we're going to do our weekend checkup. Caleb, how you been doing?
I'm good. I'm good. So spending the week, kind of getting reacclimated with the what we're covering is the first three books: Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, Prince Caspian, and Voyage of the Dawn Treader. So I was getting reacclimated with those three because it has been a little bit, and if I'm being honest, these are the ones that these are actually the ones that I remember the least because I always, even though I've read these the most, but what'll happen is I'll remember something and I'm like, oh no, the movie did that. Uh,
Yeah. Once
so
they make a movie, then yeah, your brain gets everything mixed up. Understood.
yeah, other than that, really just been uh, catching up on the backlog. I've tried playing Animal Crossing new something. I don't remember what it's called. It's the one on the Switch. Because someone told me that I should try playing it because it's relaxing, and I can't figure out what to do. Like, I don't I don't know what the point of Animal Crossing is. I don't know. Whenever I say what the point of Animal Crossing is, I don't mean that in a mean way. Like, oh, what's the point? No, I mean it in a I can't figure out what I'm supposed to be doing. I
Uh,
think
where are you at in the game? Like, did you are you like on day one or?
the most productive thing that I've done so far is touch some oranges and pitched a tent, neither of which are a euphemism. Uh, both very literal.
Tom Nook has banned you from the island. um, yeah,
I think I've bought some stuff or something, but
yeah,
like I can't figure out like what it is I'm at. Someone told me, "Hey, can you go dig on the beach to find something for me?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure." And then I discovered, oh, I don't have a shovel.
yeah. So the deal with the Switch one is it's a very slow burn at the beginning. It's very much like do something and then check back tomorrow and I'll give you something else to do. So the fact that you are kind of stuck, that's probably why.
Okay.
So like tomorrow, Nook will give you some item or give you a new building or this or that or whatever. So yeah, it's a slow burn, and that's if you're used to Animal Crossing, then fine. But if you're brand new to it, that is I've watched some streamers that never played Animal Crossing like this is terrible. I'm out of here. The
I'm
other
not gonna
thing,
say it's terrible. I don't understand it.
yeah, the other thing you can do is you can have somebody visit your island and just give you all the tools now. Then you could like unlock a bunch of stuff. So
Yeah,
uh,
that I mean, honestly, that just sounds like an MMO to me.
yeah. And this one has a lot of crafting where you're building a lot of stuff. There's a part where you have to capture scorpions and tarantulas. That's a whole lot of fun.
That's another trope in the MMO world, which is bugs.
Bugs, they are fun.
I was I was watching I don't know what the show was. It was just something that I saw on like my For You page. And it was this guy on a British TV show, and he's like, "Here's the thing. I think that we could simplify uh, we can simplify the animal kingdom. There should only be 4 types of animals. There are dogs.
Yeah.
There are cats, which are less aggressive dogs. You have bugs, which is anything that I don't know what it is. It's automatically a bug.
Okay.
And then anything that is underwater is labeled water. So they're like, okay, so what about a lobster? Oh, that's water. How about a bear? Oh, that's dog. Oh, what about an emu? He's like, I don't know what that is. That's a bug.
How was he labeling birds? They weren't their own.
Those are cat. So it depends on how aggressive they are. If they're not as aggressive, they're cats, and if they're more aggressive, they're dogs.
So silly.
Yeah,
All right.
and then bats. Bats were bugs because they have like the echolocation.
like I'm almost with him if he just added like a 5th category for birds. Then I'm like, okay, I could kind of see this, but him leaving out the birds is weird.
And so Cameron and I, we were playing a game of this at lunch, and he's like, and he kept naming lizards, and I was like, that's a bug. And then I'm like, oh, all lizards are bugs.
Yeah, that's wacky. It reminds me a little bit of Carl Pilkington. You ever listen to Carl Pilkington?
No, I haven't.
So Ricky Gervais, a real quick side here. He had a radio show, him and Stephen Merchant, and they discovered that their producer was real simple and didn't know anything. His name was Carl Pilkington.
I do know this guy. Yes.
Yeah.
I can't remember what was the name of the show.
Oh, Idiot Abroad, or
that's the one. Yes.
yeah,
Idiot Abroad. That was the one.
Yeah. Carl's Pilkington's hilarious, but he had a segment on the show where he was like, "Do we need them?" Where he would decide which animals we don't need, and he would call zoos, and they would be so confused, like he was trying to kill them or something. And he's like, "Cockroaches, do we need them?" And they're like, "What? What are you talking about?"
You know what? I do remember that segment. I guess I just didn't know his name, but I do remember that.
Carl Pilkington's amazing. Yeah, I'm a big Carl Pilkington fan.
What about yourself? You know, what have you been doing this week?
So to prepare for the Narnia show, I got addicted to a different series, and I've been like consuming all of that as usual. So my brain is now stuck on East of West, a comic book series by Jonathan
I love
Hickman.
East of West.
Okay, so you're already familiar. Cool.
Oh yeah.
For those who don't know, this is a dystopian future and an alternate timeline where the Civil War went on way longer, causing there to be 7 nations, and now the 4 horsemen are on the loose. And the 3 of the horsemen are mad at Death because Death tried to start a family, and they're after him. And that's a very simple description of it. There's a lot more complicated than that, but that's just kind of the gist of it. I'm on volume 5. I wanted to say of the trades. So
what is that, like issue 20 something?
Probably. I'm in year 2. If that makes sense. Yeah.
That would make sense then. Yeah. Yeah. I love East of West. East of West, I think, is actually. So I don't know if you know this about Jonathan Hickman, but once I tell you this, everything about his writing style will make sense. So his favorite comic book is Legion of Superheroes.
The future DC ones, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And once I tell you that, you're like, you look at Future Foundations, you look at X-Men, you look at his Avengers, and you're like, oh, this guy loves way too big, large, sprawling casts. Because Legion, like, he would be perfect for Legion of Superheroes because of the way he writes. um, which is why I love East of West, because I find East of West to be very different from that. Uh, I mean, there are a number of characters, but there's not like it's not like Legion of Superheroes or X-Men. It definitely forces him to focus on just a couple of characters.
Yeah, I mean, it when I first started, I was a little confused what was going on, but then you get really pulled into it. Um, Wikipedia. Um, Today's show was sponsored by Wikipedia. Wikipedia has a nice summary of like the events right before issue 1, so it almost helps to read that before you start reading the series, just so you kind of know what's going on. But either way, fantastic series. My library only has the first 6 volumes, so I'm about to run out of issues. So I may have to see if they can order more or whatever. So, but it's very exciting. Very cool book.
I think doesn't it go up to like 10 or something like that?
I think so. Um, and then last night as a family, we watched Candy Cane Lane starring Eddie Murphy on Amazon Prime. His new Christmas movie. It was all right.
We
Uh,
were gonna watch that. So yeah, not yesterday. We went over to my parent because my birthday's on Tuesday.
mhm.
So we went over to my parents because my dad's gonna be out of town this week. Um, and that was a movie that was brought up to watch. And I don't know, it's weird. I'm still be the Christmas season is weird for me because my birthday is December 5th.
Mhm.
And so I don't really get into the Christmas season until my birthday's over.
Understood. Yeah, that would make sense.
So we ended up
Um,
watching Old Dads with Bill Burr.
is that any good?
It's pretty funny.
Cool. Cool.
It's very much like it's him making fun of uh, it's him making fun of oh, not if he's not. Oh, thank you, Orc. I appreciate you. Um, it's him like kind of not making fun of, but it's just him complaining about like modern day culture and whatnot. It's really like just a like a stand up bit in movie form. So like he's smoking a cigar and someone comes up and is like, "Hey man, you can't smoke here." And then he takes a puff of his vape. He's like, "What are you doing?" "I'm vaping." He's like, "Listen, man, I know smoking when I see it." So there's that, and then there's like one really profound thing where he finally, blows up at everyone at like his kids' school fundraiser, and he's like, "You guys aren't really good. You're just trying your best to not get in trouble." And I'm like, "Oh, that's pretty good. That's a good line." So it's a really funny movie, and then in the last 20 minutes it gets super serious, so it's kind of confusing, but I liked it.
Cool. Yeah, that sounds like fun. Tell you what, if you can just talk a little about Narnia for just a few minutes, I'm gonna check with Daniel again, see where he's at, and then we'll
Okay. Yeah.
I'll hop back on. So
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, I'm very excited to be talking about Narnia today. This is a series that I grew up with. I want to say I'm gonna look up when the movie came out. I think it was in second or third grade. Whenever the first movie came out, and then we went to go see it like as a school, which I we used to do that a lot. I was homeschooled from middle school and high school, but in elementary school, we used to just go see movies as a field trip. So it's like one year we saw Polar Express, and those are Christmas movies. Saw Polar Express one year, 2005. So I was in third grade. We went to go see Chronicles of Narnia. And one of the coolest things, and it's one of my favorite memories, is what we would do as like a class, and then it's a basic class about 25, 30 kids. Is every day we would, in leading up to going to see the movie, we would as a class, read the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, like chapter by chapter. I don't remember how many chapters a day. It may have been one chapter a day. It may have been two. But I just remember that it was so cool. It's kind of like it's almost like those videos that you see of like those bar watch parties of Game of Thrones with like everyone's reactions, but it was like that in a school reading Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, which was a lot of fun. And that kind of always, inspired me to start writing a kids book myself, because I want to write something that a class of third graders can read together and have these reactions together. So that's kind of my history with the series.
All right, so let's see. Daniel, can you hear us? We are still having technical issues. Oh wait, it says mute. Let's see. Edit mic settings. So it sounds like Daniel can maybe hear us, but he's having trouble speaking. Sometimes, Daniel, I have to unplug my headphones and plug them back in. We apologize for these technical difficulties. Let's see. All right, so I'm gonna pull him back out of
the
thing while we figure this out. Okay. As for me, Narnia was always kind of this thing that I saw. I was like, oh, it's that boring British thing again, where some kids are talking to a lion and they're in a closet. I don't know what's going on. There's snow everywhere.
That is such a weird way to put it. It's a bunch of kids in the closet,
It's a bunch of kids. They're in a closet. Now they're in snow and there's a lion. I don't know what's going on. It's just one of those things I did not grow up knowing anything about.
Like, did you know the relationship between C.S. Lewis and Tolkien?
Well, see, I didn't grow up with Lord of the Rings either. I just, for whatever reason, my family just did not. That was just not something I knew. I knew about, just to get on track here with Lord of the Rings. Let me see if I can pull Daniel in now. How about now, Daniel? Can we hear us?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
We can hear you. Awesome.
Awesome. Hey. Very cool. Yeah.
Okay.
So
we were just talking about our experiences with Narnia. Caleb's talking about how he grew up with the series, and so now I'm talking about mine. And I knew nothing really about Narnia other than that was that weird British thing with the kids going into a closet, and then there's the snow and there's a lion.
That's funny. That's a humorous way of putting it. Yeah.
And so he was asking me about Tolkien. Well, I didn't really grow up with Tolkien either. I knew there was a Hobbit cartoon, and that's pretty much all I knew until the Lord of the Rings movies came out.
Yeah.
So
the Ralph Bakshi production.
Yeah.
Of the story, yeah, and he also did Lord of the Rings as well in a 2-part series. Yeah. I'm familiar with that too.
So then I guess over the years I kind of knew a little bit more about Lion, Witch, and Wardrobe. Lion's supposed to be Jesus, and he dies and comes back, and that's kind of all I knew about it. So a few weeks ago when I started actually reading it. So,
how did that come up? I can't remember.
So I've just been on a kick for the last couple of years of I need to read some of these things. I need to read Lord of the Rings. I need to read Dune. I need to, I just need to learn different things. Read Neverending Story. That was a little bit while back, but just want to learn different stuff.
Okay.
So how about you, Daniel? What's your experience with Narnia?
So I'm trying to remember back. The first book that I read was Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe. I want to say I was maybe 10 or 11 years old, maybe 12 when I read the book. And shortly after, got copies of the other books, the other 6 for the series, and tried to go through in order of the numbers, not in order of how they came out, which is actually something I learned later. That there was a release order. Yeah. That there was the way they were released is not the way they were written.
I actually tried to read these about, I would say like 10 years ago or 5 years ago. Someone said, "Oh, you got to read Narnia," and I started reading The Magician's Nephew, and I could not get into it, and so I stopped. And then,
Sure.
yeah, I didn't know that. Oh, you're not supposed to start with that one, even though it says number 1.
Yeah, I believe
So-
you found that out just a couple weeks ago. Whenever me and Orc were talking about it, you're like,
Yeah.
"Wait, that's not how they were released."
Yeah.
Have you guys, he mentions that he saw the BBC series when he was a kid. I've actually never seen that. Are you all familiar with the BBC series?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, I've never seen them.
I don't recall when I was exposed to them, because it feels like one of those like childhood memories back in the ether. I don't recall when this happened, but I do remember very clearly watching all those through, and actually kind of as a miniature trauma, being frustrated that when Disney or whoever it was came out with the new ones, they didn't go all the way to Silver Chair. That was a real, because I was like, BBC at least did that, like as subpar maybe as the production was, they at least had the ability to go, okay, we need to produce at least 4 of these and complete the saga with, like the connection there at the end between the Pevensies and Eustace and Jill Pole. And like that last part which kind of like bookends like the Pevensey side of things. They obviously show up in later on. Spoiler alert. Are we doing spoilers? I'm sorry.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
We can.
I didn't want to.
I'm okay if you spoil something out of the later books. I've read through Silver Chair.
That's right. I forgot. It's whenever. That's true.
I have read through Silver Chair. I'm very curious what happens in Last Battle. I just have not got there yet.
Okay.
I know a lot of characters come back, or at least are mentioned in Last Battle.
Yeah.
But
it's your Avengers Endgame.
So
yeah, man.
I would prefer not to hear.
Like, did you want more?
Yeah, I would prefer not to have it like explicitly spoiled. But if something comes up, something comes
Gotcha.
up. Yeah, if you slip, that's fine.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
That doesn't.
But yeah,
happen.
So I know everything through Silver Chair. I'll say that.
Cool.
So yeah. So I guess we'll talk a little bit about the reading order. The publisher suggests you read these in chronological order as the events happen. So Magician's Nephew is number 1, the first book. I think we all agree that is not the way to read these, that you should read them in the order it came out, at least your first time through.
Yes.
Go ahead. Yeah.
So not just that, it's almost like, and it's not this bad, but it is similar. It's like if you were to start with Phantom Menace in Star Wars, with like, because Magician's Nephew isn't even like a strong start anyways. It's out of the series, it's not one of my favorites. Definitely not a strong start. I will always push Lion the Witch in the Wardrobe, because Lion the Witch in the Wardrobe is actually my favorite of all of them anyways. So absolutely, that is not the way, and I think it's so funny that's how you started and also why you stopped reading.
Yeah, I was like, I don't know what's going on. I just could not get into it. So the other thing we were talking about, the BBC series, I would just see it while flipping channels. Like they would show it on PBS. How PBS would show like different BBC programs, and I'm always like, I don't know what's going on with these kids in the snow, and so so let's talk about the first book here, Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe. I guess we'll start talking about the kids.
Okay.
We got Peter, Susan, Lucy and Edmund. I think I got that right.
Yes, he did.
I kind of saw Peter as like the valiant hero, almost like your Leonardo of the group. You know,
The Magnificent. Yes.
yeah,
That's right. That's right. The Magnificent.
But yeah, no, definitely the Leonardo, the one who trying to do right, trying to do right by his siblings, even though he may not. Oh yeah, definitely properly introduces everything. But trying to do right by his younger siblings while also not exactly knowing how to.
I think Lucy is your child at heart that believes in fairy tales and loves everything and just very kind-hearted. We have I just said her name, I already forgot. Susan. Who is very forgettable, and she just never seems to do anything. And then we have Edmund, who I think is the little stinker who just causes a lot of havoc in the first book.
He is my favorite character in all of literature.
All literature, wow!
I want to name my son Edmund. Like legit, I love Edmund so much.
I like the character too, but I want to hear you unpack that. That's intriguing.
Favorite
in all literature. That's interesting. So please, go ahead.
So the reason I love Edmund is because of in faith, he represents all of us. Like, and it's one of my favorite things that like I never figured it out until I was like a young adult becoming an adult. As a kid, I was always like, oh man, Edmund wasn't with the rest of the kids, so he didn't get his present from Santa, right? He didn't get his gift.
Yeah, okay.
But then I realized what his gift was. His gift was Aslan taking his place. His gift was the gift that Jesus gives to us. If you're a believer, and that's the thing, is this is going to be a very a faith-based discussion, because that's really
obviously. Of course, yeah.
I don't see how we can't.
And so I kind of want to name my child Edmund because it would become a discussion. Like I would give him Lion the Witch of the Wardrobe. I would give him like the movie and all that, and he'd be like, Dad, why did you name me after the worst?
Yeah.
And I mean, like, and so I mean, Edmund. My three favorite characters are Edmund, Eustace, and Reepicheep. Which Edmund and Eustace, you'll find a a correlation there.
Definitely definitely a correlation between him and Eustace. 100%. I see that.
Yeah.
I'd love for you to talk out him and Reepicheep's correlation. That's interesting as well.
Oh, gotcha. So Reepicheep, I just love Reepicheep.
Okay.
Not in relation to Edmund and Eustace, although I do love the relationship between Eustace and Reepicheep.
Yeah. Because they all get to know each other.
Yeah, that's a great relationship. But with Reepicheep, he is very much he is the servant. He is strong in faith. And I mean, when Aslan's like at the end of Voyage of the Dawn Treader, it's not time to go into my land yet, and Reepicheep's like, nope, I'm going anyways.
Yep.
Like you have this, and so that's why I love Reepicheep. My dad's favorite character is actually Reepicheep as well.
Oh wow, okay, cool.
So yeah, those are really my three favorite characters, but Edmund over the rest of them.
I kind of see Edmund as he starts out as the skeptic. He doesn't he does not believe Lucy, and even when he sees evidence that Lucy may be, when he's the one who sees it, he still denies it, even though he's been to Narnia. He's still saying, "No, Lucy's lying." And I think that is human nature. If you're a non-believer, you're like, "No, they're crazy. Those Christians over there, they're crazy." And then even when you start seeing evidence, you are still denying it. So
I don't know. I've always struggled with him like being the because I mean like Susan is the skeptic. Susan's the one that's like it's not logical. It's not.
Yeah.
Edmund, I've never really gotten a peg on that because like he's met these creatures.
But he still denies it. He's like, "Oh, well, yeah, don't listen to Lucy. She's crazy." Yeah.
I don't think he's denying it because he doesn't believe though. I think he's just bullying his sister.
Yeah.
Which I mean, like that's a whole other thing, that. And then of course Lucy. Lucy, I think is like. By the way, daughter, I definitely want to name Lucy.
Lucy,
because Lucy is the faith like a child.
Yeah.
Like that is 100% what Lucy is she has faith like a child. She I don't even think C.S. Lewis likes Susan. So
I saw somebody like jump in the comment section was like, no one likes Susan.
Yeah. Okay. So here's the thing. I mentioned this. We as vague as possible, Daniel. Does C.S. Lewis do Susan dirty in The Last Battle?
Okay.
And whenever he reads Last Battle, we can discuss that. We can go in more. I just want like.
I feel like I've read the spoiler before about Susan that she kind of denies everything at the end, or she's not. I don't know.
We'll wait for you to read it.
Okay.
I want you to read it. I think experientially that would be good for the conversation. What I will say here and now is, I don't think he does. I actually think there's a channel I'm trying to think of. A guy who covered this has a series called Through the Wardrobe. I don't know if you're familiar with this.
I'm not, but I will look it up.
Yeah, for sure. And it's really well done. The channel, he's got like artist rendering pictures in the background, and he does commentary on the books. And he actually has done a really good job, talking about external literature that kind of talks about the timeline and how everything sort of falls between the Narnia world and our world. Really, really good in-depth stuff, I think, and entertaining.
Is it Into the Wardrobe?
Into the Wardrobe, I think that's it. I think that's the channel. And so he addresses that question. He goes into the whole thing about Susan, and he talks about the issues in Last Battle. But he makes a nod to the introductory part of Lion, Witch, and Wardrobe, where Lewis actually, I'm forgetting who it is he assigns this to. It's like a niece, I think, or a nephew.
I think it was a goddaughter I was reading.
A goddaughter, yeah. In the opening pages, and talks about, those who are too old for fairy tales, but one day you'll be old enough for them again.
Yes, that is a quote. One day you'll be old enough to read fairy tales again. Yes. I love that quote.
And I think that the guy who does this channel, Into the Wardrobe, is right. I think Susan's story and how it ends is a nod to that real person.
Okay.
I think there's so I'd like us when Aaron gets through reading, I'd like us to go back and reevaluate that, because I think that's the key to that whole question about Susan.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I just want to mention that because I've never gotten I don't know anyone who has actually read past Voyage of the Dawn Treader because that's the last movie.
Right.
So I needed perspective from somebody who has also read The Last Battle, because I've been dying to ask someone that question.
No, 100%. Yeah, no, it's a great question, and I think a lot of Narnia fans, whether you're familiar with all the books or not, or even the conversation about the different characters from a faith perspective, everybody has that question. Because the way, again, trying not to give anything away, but the way The Last Battle ends in regard to the Pevensey kids is a shock. It's
Yes.
it's something we're not expecting. So from a literary perspective, that's a good thing because it like captivates. It's like, oh wow, what's going on there? But from the perspective of being a fan and kind of wanting a more of a neat, nice bow, it's a shocker. It jars you. So yeah.
Yeah, there comes a point where you realize, oh, okay, the Pevensies are just it's more about the Caspian bloodline than the Pevensies at a point.
Right.
So I think we'll move on to the witch and the lion discussion here.
Okay.
I was listening to these while I was working, so there's some of these details I may have gotten wrong or I was misheard because I was busy doing other stuff while trying to listen to these. So the witch, I believe, represents the devil. I would assume, although I haven't read the last battle, so I don't know.
Yeah. So yeah, and again here once again, once
I think there are multiple devils in this series.
Yes, right. And that's once you read the last battle, it'll be easier to kind of address that from like an overview perspective. Absolutely, as an initial introduction in terms of like an antagonist protagonist, 100% a devil figure, enemy character, right? But as you go further, as you go further in the books, you'll see that just like Caleb said, there are other devils.
Yeah, because in Silver Chair, the lady turned into a snake and all that.
Right.
So,
right.
Yeah.
Well, you have the and I know we're not going to talk about this book today, but like obviously Silver Chair, you have the woman, the lady, the green lady, but then you also have in like Horse and His Boy, you've got Rabadash, and you've got other figures. There's a whole like you got the empire like south of Narnia and all of that's going on.
Yeah.
And there's a deity that they worship. There's a whole nother part of the world.
Okay, so maybe think really of more as demons and devils than the devil.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Really, a Horse and His Boy. It's not exactly, but it's almost like it's the closest that Narnia will get to the origin of evil.
Agreed.
So that's really that, and that's what I think is really interesting is. As far as the layout of the series, you've got these first four, which we're only talking about three, but you've got the first four, which is about the kids, and they're kind of like learning what Narnia is, who lives there, the Caspian bloodline, and then you've got this 2-book interlude. One is about the origin of evil, and one is about essentially the origin of good. Because Magician's Nephew is about the origin of Narnia, origin of Aslan, all that.
Yeah.
And then the last battle kind of like brings it all together. So I think they're very, very interesting in the way that's all laid out. Almost kind of reminds me of Stephen King's Dark Tower series. These are better though, but
sure, yeah, of course.
Yeah, so we see the witch use temptation on Edmund with was it Turkish Delight, I think, that she kept giving him.
That's right.
Have you guys ever had Turkish Delight?
I have not.
No, but funny enough, I took a trip. I was traveling overseas, and we stopped in Turkey, in Istanbul, and we were walking through the airport, and there was a giant like on the side in the store, like all this Turkish Delight, like stacked up boxes of it like a pyramid. And I was walking by like, oh, there's the Turkish Delight. I was looking for, and that was a wild experience. So So
I have had it.
Okay.
There are actually different kinds. If it was, it's one of those things where like if it's just a regular Turkish Delight, it's like Edmund, come on, this tastes like flowers or something. But they have like strawberry ones too, which are really good. But yeah, like just traditional Turkish Delight is like rose water, which is a very acquired taste.
Okay, gotcha.
But yeah, there's definitely the temptation with the Turkish Delight and the hot chocolate, which the scene in the movie, which my uncle, you have not seen the movie yet, but like once he's done with it, she just throws it against the tree and it like dissipates into snow. It's such a cool shot.
Yeah.
It's so cool.
Okay, yeah, we almost watched Chronicles of Narnia last night, and we went with Candy Cane Lane instead. We were kind of like, we don't want to get into a movie we have to really pay attention to last night. So I'm sure sometime during December we will watch Chronicles of Narnia.
100%. It's definitely, I would argue, tooth and nail, it's a Christmas film.
Oh yes, absolutely.
It's 100% a Christmas. And
Santa appears.
Of course, yeah, Father Christmas. So I think it's definitely that, and also the way in which it's. I mean, I think those movies stand up today against
absolutely
everything else. Yeah, it's just, I think they're so well done. But definitely, yeah, you see that sort of theme emerging in the story. Maybe not as a primary thing, but it's part of Lewis's expression of the idea of cheer and Thanksgiving juxtaposed to the wickedness of the witch, where she keeps her. Tumnus says, Narnia has been under her thumb for 100 years, always winter, never Christmas, and just sort of this idea of like the worst parts, I guess you could say, of existence just exacerbated, and then the best parts, or the things that are enjoyable and bring happiness, totally snuffed out. And then when Aslan shows up, that all starts to, just like spring after wintertime, all that starts to come back to life. So, yeah.
Well, I mean, I think that's a reflection of the world now, where you just see insanity online and streaming and chaos in the world. But Christmas time, we're still singing about baby Jesus stuff. It's still
right.
It's still getting out there, even with all the noise that we're surrounded with.
Yeah.
So fun fact, they're actually in the movie, Reliant K has a I think it's called "In Like a Lion." It's always winter, never Christmas, which is a great song.
Yeah, very cool.
Yeah. So I guess we'll move on to Aslan, if I'm saying that right.
Aslan, yeah.
I really like when characters encounter him for the first time.
Oh, it's brilliant.
How some people, how they react differently to him. Like Edmund has a very different reaction to him than the other children do. And I almost feel like that's how believers or non-believers, if they have a God moment, how they react also.
Yeah. The other three kids, they've heard of Aslan, they've been searching for him, and he's kind of got like this majesty. And then whenever Edmund meets him, it's more like he's almost got shame,
Yeah.
It's which then of course follows followed by one of my favorite lines in the whole book. What's done is done. There is no need to speak with Edmund about his past.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, like that's what God says in a way is what one way that I was always taught was, once you're forgiven, you could bring it up to God again and then be like, what are you even talking about? Like, because what's done is done.
Right.
We don't need to talk about this anymore.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, that whole point where after they've saved Edmund and Aslan are talking, I just love that because you can see the sorrow on Edmund's face, but also just the joy of whenever he sees that he's accepted by his family again.
Yeah.
I love this character.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I do. I love that scene, and I love how Edmund, to me, and I'm probably jumping ahead here a little bit, but I'm going to take that.
Go ahead.
We're going to go down there. So the four Pevensey kids, a lot of Lewis's writings, at least to me, seemed very heavily influenced by his tradition. So he was an Anglican. And so there's some very strong Catholic traditions, it's not exclusively Catholic, but there's a lot of that in there. And so like when you're looking at the four Pevensey kids, there's a nod to the four Gospels. There's a nod to the first four disciples that Jesus called, right? Simon, Peter, James, and John. And then you also have sort of a nod to, in specifically Edmund's case, a nod to Judas. And he's actually called the betrayer in the story. What's intriguing, though, is that in Narnia, in Lewis's narrative, you have a redemption of the Judas.
Yes.
Have the Lord redeeming Judas. And so it's and what's cool about that is if you're sort of thinking in those terms, is that the kids come up, right? So Aslan's talking with Edmund. I forget if it's the fairies or if it's the satyrs, whoever, that tell the kids, hey, we found your brother. And so they run to see where Edmund is, and he's talking with Aslan. And then, just like you said, he comes down and tells them, it's over. There's no need to talk about what's past. And the kids, who understandably, experientially, like have sort of I think probably more Peter than anybody, but they're like frustrated with Edmund that he went with the witch, that he betrayed them. But they take Aslan's lead and they forgive him by being instructed by the Lord to do that. And there's a whole bunch going on to me in that scene that I love so much. The way that the church is supposed to treat people who have been forgiven in spite of what they've done, because God's already dealt with it. And he expects us to be in line with what he wants, which is forgiveness and grace, because that's what he's given. So I love Edmund's story, and I love that scene, and I love how it plays into, for us, how we see theology in light of God's heart toward those who have wandered, that he wants to bring back and restore and redeem. So
I saw a news report, it's been a couple of years ago, where I won't go into details, but basically the pastor got up in front of the church and confessed all these horrible sins he had done. And the church forgave him right then and there. And the news media did not understand why they are standing with this man who just said, I did all this bad stuff.
Right.
Yeah. And, I think that is, well, that's us. That's the Christians. We're supposed to lift each other up and forgive each other.
Right.
And so,
I think one part that I really like, though, is the Pevensies do follow Aslan's lead on that.
Yeah.
Lucy doesn't have to be told.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. She is just
right.
She has to be stopped.
Yeah.
Before she, because Edmund and Aslan are still talking, and she's so excited to go see him, but they're like, no, wait until they're finished talking, Lucy.
Right. Yeah. No, it's
the other thing with Aslan is how people approach him. They are scared of Aslan, and it's because it's a lion. And I think that we are as Christians, when we talk to God, he is a powerful being. We should have that respect and fear of him. And I think the world tries to diminish him constantly. And so okay, so the witch, and I may get some of this mixed up here, is trying to prevent the prophecy that the two sons of Adam and the two daughters of Eve will destroy her and become the rulers of Narnia.
That's right. Yeah.
So she charges Edmund with treason, if I recall. So,
well, ironically, it's the crime that he commits in trying to be in service to her.
Yeah.
So he betrays Aslan. He betrays the righteous king, the rightful ruler and king of Narnia, and in so doing becomes guilty of sin, which again is supposed to be in the service of the White Witch, but she then turns on him advantageously for her benefit and goes to Aslan and says, well, you have a betrayer here. Never mind the fact he was trying to help me, but you have a betrayer, and all betrayers and sinners are mine, my property. And that's an interesting conversation between the witch and the lion, where there's some allusions back to some of the other books, specifically, again, try not to give spoilers here, but
he straight up says, do not repeat back to me, I was there when it was written.
Right. Yeah. And so that's the reference to, the magician's nephew, is that the origin of Narnia itself is that there's this call back to creation, and this sort of, like, we could say, written order or law of God, sort of like almost Old Testament type language that she's referencing, that she, by the way that she describes herself, apparently is the rightful recipient of the blood of sinners, that those who are condemned are under her authority, under her power, which is just an interesting thing that kind of gets presented in the story that isn't necessarily out and outright alluded to or stated, but is something that she says, and Aslan doesn't correct her. That's true, although he does rebuke her, like Caleb said, for repeating the magic to him. But
yeah,
so
they talk about the old magic and the older magic still. That
yes, right,
Aslan
yeah,
goes
at the
on,
resurrection, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
is that she's stating the law as it is understood to creation almost, but then Aslan is referring to the law that pre-exists creation. And so that's a really cool, and of course that law has to do with the sacrifice and the love and the salvation of Edmund through the giving of life willingly. As Aslan says, a willing victim who is killed in a traitor's stead. And when that happens, the stone table cracks and death itself turns backwards.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
So the stone table, I mean, it's supposed to represent the cross, but any significance to it being a stone in this story?
I've always taken it as, so the stone table breaks as the veil is torn.
Mm-hmm.
That's the way I've always taken it.
100%. Yeah, it's definitely a reference to the veil situation in the Gospels. I would say the significance of it being a table is indicative of the Old Testament picture of an altar.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah.
Think back to the Old Testament, right? So how the Jews would sacrifice on the altar before the Lord, and that was the sort of the equivalency for the lamb that we then see in the upright position with Jesus on the cross. So I think that Lewis was trying to tie together those images with the veil, the altar, the cross, into one central sort of picture that would hopefully communicate all of that. Yeah.
We also, and I can't remember the order or thing. This maybe before Aslan is killed. They shave his mane, very similar to the beard being plucked from Jesus.
Yeah.
I think he's stabbed, also like the spear stabbing in the Bible. So yeah, just a lot of very clear. If you don't think this is Jesus, he's making it very clear. Yeah, this is supposed to be Jesus.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah, and I think it's even more clear in, I think it's the third book, Voyage of Dawn Treader, where he's like, yeah, you know me as Aslan here. I'm known by a different name in your world. Like hit. If you kids are still not following, you know.
Right.
Yeah, and that's why that's kind of why, as far as like the adaptations, I don't mind them ending with Voyage of the Dawn Treader, is because, like, if you didn't know there was more, I'm known by another name, that's a pretty good cap off.
Yeah.
Like, that's why I don't necessarily, of course I want them to go through all 7 all the way to the last battle, but like,
yeah,
if you're gonna stop somewhere before then, Voyage of the Dawn Treader's not.
Yeah,
horrible.
I think that the company that Disney was working with lost the rights after Dawn Treader, so that's why they stopped. I know that there's a new production company, and Tripping Orc mentioned he thinks it might be Netflix that is going to be making a new Narnia series. I'm very nervous about this. The writer of, I think, the Barbie movie is working on it.
It's Greta Gerwig, which that definitely is.
Yeah.
It's kind of a red flag. As you've seen how like Wheel of Time and other properties have been in Lord of the Rings have been treated like by Amazon and stuff. It's a red flag here about are they going to do it justice or not?
And to be fair, I think everybody was concerned when Disney got the rights originally.
True.
Like after the BBC production, which again wasn't the most incredible quality in terms of the visuals and all that, but I think was really pretty spot on to staying true to the text. So there was some concern. Hopefully they'll still, I'm always sort of crossing my fingers saying, I mean, we have the books, like we know how the story goes. So hopefully it's not some just absolute abhorrent, horrible, like I don't know, some like Fast and Furious type version where it's just like totally different story.
We'll see. We'll know right away if like Susan is the main character in this version. We'll know that. Oh, okay, hold up, you don't understand.
Yeah. That would really be it. Like,
right? Yeah.
I mean, I think, and I do think it's interesting. Like, you could say that there's a different main character in every. Lucy's the main character of Lion the Witch and the Wardrobe. I think that we can kind of.
Without question.
Yeah. So, like, Disney, who, or it's not even Disney, but Netflix. Right now, companies love having their female protagonists. Lucy's a perfect one. So, go crazy with her.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Tripping Orc mentions they'd have to introduce brand new characters. Well, I guess Silver Chair would still be Eustace, but then you'd have to, what's her name? Jill Pole's the other character. Yeah. So you start losing your main 4 kids and stuff. So I get it. That would be especially if each movie is performing less and less as they go on. You're like, okay, now we're taking even a bigger risk by getting rid of our whole cast.
Yeah.
So I get it from a business standpoint, but yeah. It reminds me a little bit of a Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy that Disney made. It was like, oh, it's a pretty good attempt at a movie, and then they didn't make any more. And you're like, there's more story.
Yeah.
So let's continue with the story. We have the resurrection, and the witch is defeated. There's a major battle that happens.
Yes.
That battle actually takes place before they know that Aslan is resurrected. Like,
yes.
I mean, it takes place after they know too, but like it starts before they know he's resurrected, which I always thought was really interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, at that point, it's just a climax. I'm not going to say that like Lewis, stops having things to say after the resurrection, but like, is there much else to say?
Yeah. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say it's interesting because it kind of like jumps in time at that point where it's like, okay, and then they grew up and they're adults, and we're gonna skip over all the stuff about them being rulers, and now the story's over. They're back home. It kind of like speeds up really fast after that point.
Yeah.
Before we move on to Prince Caspian, I do want to talk about their titles, because I find their titles to be very interesting. You have High King Peter the Magnificent, which I think is just very much Peter. The one that has always, not baffled me, but just kind of like Queen Susan the Gentle. That one. There's nothing that I saw Susan do that was more gentle than Lucy, which I always thought was interesting.
Yeah, I think, and I'm trying to remember through all of them. I remember Peter's, I remember Edmund's, I remember Lucy's and Susan's. Now that you've mentioned, I think, as I'm thinking back through the book, since I think if I'm remembering correctly, they did this correctly in the films. Aslan does the naming of the titles when they're crowned.
Yes.
That is a super important aspect, I think, because when you go through the titles, the sort of key for me is Edmund's title.
The Just.
Because Edmund is called the Just. Obviously, in the story, Edmund has not been acting justly until a certain point, right? He finally does. He joins the right team. The way that I read that is almost like it's a picture of what Aslan wants and desires for the children to be.
Oh,
like it's a pointing to like I like with Peter. Peter starts off when he's attacked by Fenris's guard. He's afraid. Like he's afraid of the wolves. He's not quite sure if he can be, Peter Wolfsbane, but then he does. Aslan says, "Hey, everybody back off. Let him fight the wolf." He overcomes his fear and he becomes Peter the Magnificent. And so I think there's a sense where for Susan, her character is almost more feisty and fiery. And there's a desire in Aslan to see her sort of bring that, not bring it under control, like it's wrong for her to be excited, but like that there's a rashness maybe to her spirit that needs to be that needs to be changed, needs to be what's the word I'm thinking of? But there's a balance to each of the characters, right? Between the negative and the positive of their emotions and their personalities. And I see that in the names, in the titles, that's a picture of sort of like a final, a crescendo to the characters themselves becoming who they were born to be, kind of thing.
Okay. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
So we'll move on to Prince Caspian.
Real quick before we move on to Prince Caspian, I do want to bring up this this tweet that I've always held on to by Brennan Lee Mulligan, who is a part of College Humor and Dropout and does a lot of D&D stuff. I've always thought this was really funny. In C.S. Lewis's Chronicles of Narnia, crucifixion and resurrection are seen through the lens of allegory, with Aslan as Christ juxtaposed against the backdrop of fauns and dryads, pagan imagery in service of a Christian theme. There are also two beavers named Mr. and Mrs. Beaver.
Right.
That offers nothing, except maybe it does, because I think that, I mean, it's for kids, and so of course you're going to name Mr. and Mrs. Beaver, but still have all this allegory. I just wanted to bring up that tweet because I've always thought it was really funny.
That is funny. Yeah.
So Prince Caspian, to be honest, I was not crazy about this book. It felt like almost we're doing Macbeth or something now. There was just kind of a tonal shift.
I'm very curious what you have to say, Daniel, because this is definitely one that I actually won't have too much to say on. I've struggled finding the faith allegory in this one myself.
Well, I think
with
Prince
Prince
Caspian. I think when they are where Aslan's still there, but they don't see him. Like I think that happens to us on our Christian walk, where there are times where God feels distant, but he's still there. You just don't know it. Like he's still kind of guiding their path.
Sure.
That's the part I got there, but
yeah, Caspian. So, and I'm kind of drawing this from the book release order, because Prince Caspian follows Voyage of the Dawn Treader. And as I'm looking at the way the titles kind of go through all the way to Silver Chair, and then of course we get Horson's Boy, Magician's Nephew toward the end before Last Battle, there seems to be, and kind of alluding back to what you made the comment earlier, Caleb, when Lewis finishes with the resurrection, what more is there to say, right? Like what else? What else is there? And I really feel like if we're looking at Narnia as a closed story of creation to, final new creation, like Book of Revelation, like Genesis, Revelation kind of thing, it seems to be that Prince Caspian is the first sort of like Old Testament nod.
Okay.
Even though it happens after the story, because when you get into the story, there's the major themes. You have a denial of the ancient story, the meta narrative by Miraz and by his people, those wives' tales about fawns, and that's not true. Even though they're lying, right? They're deceiving Prince Caspian. Because there's a dwarf who lives in the castle who's teaching him the truth about what really did happen. But they are, for their, political expedient reasons, they're trying to keep that all, quiet. But there's a denial of the meta narrative. So the time when after, Moses and the prophets died, and now people are saying, well, did that really happen? Was that true? And then as you move forward in the story, when Aslan brings the Pevensies back, there's sort of this major arc where everyone's faith is being tested, and you have, I forget what his name is, one of the dwarves who's evil, says, well, we need to reconjure the spirit of the White Witch. We need to go back to sorcery. And so there's this picture almost like in the Old Testament between prophets of Baal versus Elijah, this idea of hey, let's go make a covenant with the devil and see if that works, because apparently God isn't answering our prayers. So that all through Caspian, that's kind of seems to be the theme, is this wrestling of trust in God based on what's already happened, right? The testimony, the big, for in the Old Testament, the big event would be like the Exodus, right? In comparison to like the New Testament with the resurrection. And so there's like this hallmark of God's people who know the truth and yet have chosen to not believe or stop believing. Peter's caught up in that. He's like almost brought into like bringing the witch back, because he's like, yeah, well, we're pinned down here. And, you know, I forget, not the Talmurans, but the Miraz's people.
That's the Talmurans.
It's the Talmud. Okay.
Yeah,
So
yeah. You're thinking of
like,
the Calormenes are.
Yeah, the Calormenes and the Talmud. Yeah. So the Talmud's like, yeah, they've got us pinned down here. Like, there's no escape. We're going to starve to death. We've got to get out of here. And then they get this offer like, yeah, hey, let's make a covenant with the witch. Let's bring her spirit back. And even though we went through this whole amazing saga of her being destroyed and, you know, 100 years of winter and never Christmas, and Aslan had to die and rise again. Yeah, all that happened. But hey, let's go back where we started. So there seems, it's kind of like this very much Old Testament narrative of, you know, choose you this day who you will serve, like Joshua says. Mm-hmm. Or like in the case of Elijah on Mount Carmel, if Baal is God, serve him. But if the Lord is God, serve him and worship him only. And that comes through in the end, because Aslan does come back. He does manifest. He wakes up the dryads and the river gods. He wakes up all of Narnia. The trees come back to life. And there's this rejuvenation of the supernatural aspect of the story by the faith that is held out onto by a handful of people. Like Lucy's one of them, but even she struggles. Everybody, it's a testing of faith kind of story. I really I think James maybe would be the best book to equate that to, right? James talking about the testing of your faith, producing patience, or it might have been Paul, but that sort of idea that you see lived out in the Old Testament period where Israel is being challenged and questioning the story of their faith. Like, yeah, we heard about how God like did all these amazing things and brought us out of Egypt, but like, is he still there? Is he still with us? Is he still listening to us? Things have changed geopolitically. There's new people in power. What are we to make of that? There's sort of all that kind of going on as Lewis is building the framework of his world, almost working backward to creation, which he eventually gets to with the magician's nephew. And then finally looking forward with the last battle.
This is why I love talking to Daniel. He will pull all this stuff out of a story that I will totally miss. And my big takeaway from this book was Prince Caspian got bit by a werewolf. Why did he turn into a werewolf?
No, I mean, it's so interesting because you're so right. It's so obvious, and I don't know what I read this when I was like 9 or 10, and I've read this, many times after that, and I'm like, why didn't I catch any of this? Of course, I mean, and it's even more obvious with how it ends with them crossing the bridge. Yeah, kind of like Exodus with the Red Sea. Like, it's so obvious, and I just never caught that. No, that's. You know what? Maybe it is because it takes place after the resurrection, and that's what confused me.
That might... 100%. Yeah. I completely agree. I think that's part of why people do get sort of like, because it's not happening linearly in the way that we know the narrative. Because we're thinking New Testament believers. We're like, okay, the resurrection's way after all that stuff. And Lewis is almost like, I think in his mind, like, oh wait, I got to go back and tell the foundation like why this is all happening. But I'm already here, so I guess I'll just make that after fact. And so it creates this like, and Lewis talked about it's not a 1-to-1 equivalency exactly. It is in the theme of Scripture, but like I'm trying to remember who. There's a little book. I forget the name of the author. Let me see if I can look this up real quick. It's called A to Z Through Narnia or something like that. And in the story, let's see here.
Lewis Marcos?
Yeah, that's the one. And in the story, when it starts with Aslan, A for Aslan, and he talks about how when Lewis was interviewed, he makes the point that for Lewis, it is an allegory, but for Lewis, it was more than that. He was like, I'm not simply writing an allegory of Jesus and the cross in Narnian terms. Lewis said, I'm creating a story that would that would give us a picture of what it would look like for Jesus to go to a different world in a different context and be a savior there, the way that he was here. So it's like, it's even more so. It's not just that Aslan is a form of Jesus. It's that he is Jesus in Narnia.
I mean,
He is.
with the ending of Don Shredder. I mean, like, that makes sense. Like, take it very literally. I am known by a different name.
Yeah. Right.
And we're kind of jumping ahead. We get the imagery of him as a lamb turning into the lion. Just very clearly.
Yeah.
It's like,
in case you don't get it yet.
Yeah. If you haven't caught on yet, hint.
Right.
4 books in, you still don't get it.
Right.
I did hate Prince Caspian. It just did hit me like the other books did, you know.
Yeah.
It definitely is. I'm really interested for you to watch the movie, because the movie adds a lot, because there's not enough here in this book to make a movie, so they had to add a lot.
Yeah.
I already told you about, like, the big thing they added, which was an entire infiltration action scene where they are going to assassinate Miraz. Which try to explain the faith imagery in that. I don't know.
Yeah, that was odd. It almost made sense in the sense of, like, okay, well, like, the Narnians they're not really kind of following along or being led by Aslan directly, so I can see where they would think, okay, we need to take the offensive and attack our enemy. This almost kind of like a nod to, like, this land is ours kind of thing, like kind of like an Israel Canaanite kind of thing. But
definitely.
I will say, for me, the thing that I really kind of was frustrated with was the impromptu Caspian Susan love story.
Well, they had to give her something to do.
I get, sure. I'll take that. By
the way, in the movie, there's a Caspian Susan love story.
Oh yeah, sorry. Oh man, sorry. Spoiler.
It's all right. It's fine. It's fine. Yeah, I haven't seen the movies, so
which is so funny because it goes nowhere.
Like,
I mean, like, and here's the thing: it has to go nowhere because of who Rillian's mom is.
Right. Well,
and you wouldn't be able to change it, because it is important who Rillian's mom is.
Correct. We'll see, and so again, trying not to spoil anything. The rest of the books make it clear that Susan can't be the person that ends up with Caspian. I'll just say it that way. Yeah. Like Caleb's saying, like, it's lineages and all of that stuff, and it would. If it went somewhere, it would mess literally the entire story up. Mm-hmm. They'd have to rewrite it, the story. But yeah, that was just a weird. Anyway, give her something to do. Which, I don't know. I think I felt like, if you're looking at the books from a conversation dialogue, I think Susan contributes. I would say just as much as she does in Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe. Maybe not as much.
It's her. Susan's horn is what draws them to Caspian, correct? Yeah. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
So,
which I would think in the movie, that's where it starts, is like, hey, here's your horn back, and like, oh man, of course they're gonna be together. He gave her horn back.
Right. Yeah.
So I think that's pretty much what you have to say about Prince Caspian, other than Aslan telling the 2 older children, you're not coming back. This is your final Narnia adventure.
Yeah. That was, at the time reading, really a bummer. I was like, oh man, sad day.
Well, for me, it was like, oh man, they're getting rid of Peter. Like, I'm left with this Edmund guy now, because I didn't get it. I didn't get it.
What are him and Lucy gonna do?
and now Edmund and Lucy are like, oh yeah, they are my children.
Yeah. That's funny.
Yeah. So let's move on to Voyage of the Dawn Treader, which Tripping Orc says was his favorite of the series. I think I agree so far. Yeah, I think this was the one I enjoyed the most. We get introduced to is he their cousin, Eustace? Is their cousin,
Yes.
I believe. And he's just he mocks them. He doesn't believe anything they're talking about Narnia. He's just kind of a bratty kid. He's kind of awful.
I may, I am going to read the first line, which I think is a brilliant first line. There was a boy called Eustace Clarence Scrubb, and he almost deserved it.
Yep, there it is.
Such a great opening.
It's such a great opening. You can, in that, I'm sorry, Caleb read my mind on this, because I wanted to mention this because it was so impactful when I read the first Witch Doctor. You can hear Lewis is like, yeah, this kid is a problem, but I feel so bad for him.
Yeah.
It's like the ugly duckling type language. Who could love this kid?
And
yeah, go ahead.
In the movie, they could not have gotten a more perfect person.
Oh,
with Will Poulter. And now that we've seen him as Adam Warlock and we know what he is now, I'm like, oh man, imagine if we got the last battle.
Yeah, really. It would be. I would have loved it. Now here's the thing, though. I will say, as a pop culture question, and I don't recall the name of the guy from the BBC, but I really liked that casting for Silverchair. And I don't know. It was tough because I did like the new guy, but between the two of them, I don't know. I feel like maybe the BBC kid did it better.
Okay. I think I'm gonna watch them probably before the next Narnia discussion, because I definitely want to. I've never seen any of them.
Oh, you haven't seen the BBC series?
No.
Oh man, yeah, I would definitely go back and rewatch it again. Graphics and all it's bad. It's like early 90s or before, yeah. But as far as like dialogue and character and all that, I liked them. I thought they did a really good job. And it's for Eustace, it's like the guy who plays him just captures that like really like weaselly like on the one side coming into Voyage of the Dawn Treader, like this kid is terrible, but then the transformation and him like realizing, yeah, I was really a bad kid. I need to like get my act together and do the right thing and be with Aslan. I thought it was really well done.
Yeah.
So
his name is David Thwaites is the actor.
Yes. Yeah.
I have always wanted more of the Eustace Edmund relationship, because I always thought that because there's enough of it in Dawn Treader, but I want more of it, because it's like it's almost like the idea of as believers, we've got our peers, but then we're always going to have our peers, and we're always going to have people who are, let's say, more experienced in faith than us, mentors, and then we're always going to have those less that we can mentor.
Yes.
And so I've always felt that like Eustace was, or at least could have been more overtly the mentee of Edmund.
Yeah.
Because Edmund's like, oh man, is this what I was like?
Yeah, right. Exactly. You can 100% see that. I see that. I see there's almost a tension in Dawn Treader with Edmund being like, I don't want to be Peter, but I'm Peter in this situation.
Right.
And so there's this like being on the other side of the coin. Because like in Wardrobe, when they fight with each other, and he's like, oh, you think you're dad, and you can't tell me what to do. But then now, Peter coming of age, obviously being through his experience with Aslan, being forgiven, and now seeing Eustace embody sort of that spirit he had initially when they first come to the professor's house. To me, it was pure genius on Lewis's part to really show that in a relationship with this isn't just an Edmund thing. This is a human condition thing. This is something all of us go through, and it's maybe more painful, not just coming through it, but then seeing that in others, seeing that issue that needs to be worked out. And yeah, I loved that dynamic, 100%.
Yeah, and then I say we don't get enough of Edmund and Eustace, but of course the true mentor-mentee relationship is Reepicheep and Eustace.
Oh yes, absolutely, yeah.
Which I mean, at this point, I think I've already said my piece on Reepicheep. Like, just very much, he is the, I almost said the blind servant. That's not what I mean. The faithful servant. I think that's the best way to put it. So
he reminded me of this is gonna sound weird, of Worf from Star Trek Next Generation. Like he's following the teachings of the Klingon, and he's this warrior, and he's just gonna follow through and do what what the his teachings are. So this one, they are looking for, I think it's the Lost Lords of Narnia. I think there's like 9 of them or something. It's been a while.
Yeah.
This book is weird because this out of all of the books, this one is almost like, this is almost an anthology book, like a book of short stories, because there's not necessarily one thing that they're after. Each island that they stop at kind of has its own story, which I find very interesting. Which they change in the movie, but you're not really going to have vignettes in a kids movie.
No, yeah, for sure. It's 7 lords.
Seven lords. Okay.
Oh, there's 7. Hey,
there's your biblical 7.
Yeah.
Number of completion. Yeah. So and no, he's 100% right though. It is I would say that it is an anthology. I think that I think the weirdness of the story is that it seems to serve there are lessons learned. There's character development, just like the other books. But it seems to function almost, and I'm not saying this to dog it or bring it down, but it seems to me very similar to How a Horse and His Boy is kind of like a thread connecting the other stories together. Because there are things that take place in, again, not to give spoilers alert, there's stuff that takes place in the Voyage of the Dawn Treader that connects to not just the Silver Chair, but to Last Battle, and sort of this, just like, again, this theme connector where, so you have a bunch of different sort of like, almost like mini stories within that are all sort of tied together. And I guess kind of like in a video game, it's kind of like we've already beaten the boss level, we've already gone through the game, now we're just doing side missions. It really feels like that. And I, granted, I love the side missions, I love what happens. But that's how I would relate it.
You putting it that way, I now know why this is his favorite of the 3 that he's read so far. This is The Legend of Zelda Wind Waker.
Yeah,
I was gonna say, maybe Wind Waker. I was gonna say Majora's Mask, where you get caught up helping everybody. But yeah, those are 2 games I love.
Oh so. yeah. I mean, like, so, and like that's the thing. I think more than anything, because there is definitely there's a difference between an epic and a tale. Lion the Witch and the Wardrobe, you can be seen as an epic. Voyage of the Dawn Treader, very much a tale.
Yeah.
Kind of like how Ocarina of Time is an epic, while Majora's Mask is a tale. Just kind of like in that sense. But yeah, no. Putting it like that, it completely makes sense that Voyage was your favorite of the 3.
Right.
Yeah. So we have, I think the first island deals with slavery.
Yes.
So we deal with that, and then the second island is where Eustace turns into the dragon,
which is my favorite. Oh man, I'm trying to. I have the book in front of me. I'm trying to find the actual. It's almost like just like a great monologue you would want to use as like an audition, where he talks about like I think he calls it the good pain, where like it hurt, but I knew I couldn't do it myself.
Yeah, when Aslan's freeing him.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, I love it. Yeah. Go ahead.
Say that reminds me of when you were trying to battle sin and you keep trying and you just cannot get a victory, and then when God steps in, and I think that's kind of what we're seeing here of him trying to shed that skin.
That the way that they depicted that in the film, the Disney adaptation was really, I thought, was perfect. Where, again, spoilers, but I gotta describe it because it was so good. He's in his dragon form. He's on the beach and he's just miserable, right? Understandably so. That the ring is digging into his arm, or the bracelet, however you want to describe it. And Aslan appears. Eustace is afraid, obviously, and he starts to paw at the sand with his claws. And as he's pawing into the sand, the flesh starts to rip and tear with claw marks. And Aslan, he's growling, but he's not growling at him. He's trying to remove this terrible curse, this pain. And it's something he has to physically do that is causing pain to Eustace, but it's not to hurt him, it's to free him. And to me, it's such a perfect picture of God's relationship. And the reason that because I forget, I think it's the same island where the whole the gold that they find the pool, rather, everything's about the Lord has been turned to gold, and Edmund and Caspian start to fight over, they become bewitched by the gold and the lust for the money and the potential for just turning things into gold and making tons of money. And so they start to fight each other, and then they are broken from that. I forget if it's Lucy, or I think it's Lucy that gets them to stop fighting.
Yep.
But there's this idea of in stopping the sin before it happens. And obviously for Eustace, that doesn't. He puts on the bracelet and he turns into the dragon. And so there's almost this picture full circle with Aslan. Aslan is angry in the sense that he's pained that he has to put Eustace through pain to free him, when it would have been better for him to have never had to go through that.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a redemptive quality, obviously. He redeems him through it. But it's that kind of a thing. It would have been better to not have to do this, but I have to do it now. And it's the only way for you to be free. And so we're going to do this. And so it's just, to me, it's a very vivid picture of struggles with issues of being tempted by sin, the effects of sin, and the real challenge and necessity of having to go through the pain of that to be able to overcome and get through it. So, yeah.
When I got these books from the library, the cover to this one was just a dragon crying and a mouse standing next to him. I'm like, what is this?
Awesome. That's so good.
Oh man, that's better. Mine is I'll go ahead and my lights are on. 1 second.
But yeah, I think the third island is the one where the pool turns things into gold.
Yeah, as you're saying, that's I think you're 100% right. If you got your notes, obviously you've got that right. That one there, and then the picture that we have in the foreground is the one that I had for my book, with Pete, with Edmund and Lucy, and then Eustace being grabbed by his trousers.
Right.
Very terrified and not sure what's going on.
Yeah, this is when
great.
I think this is where they're being pulled into the painting, right?
Yes, that's right. Yep. And their room fills with water from the painting, and then they end up swimming to the surface, and they're in Narnia, and then Dawn Treader's just off from them, and they get pulled in. Yeah, just a great opening to the story. But yeah, that artist rendering, that image we've got there, is what I had from my book. And I bought the series originally as individuals, and then I've got a really big. I got it over here somewhere. Hold on.
Is it the big Bible of one? Yeah, I have that too. Yeah. Yeah, I have that too. I have that, and I have the 7-book collection. So
yeah. The individuals. That's how I first read through it, was with the individual books, and then I was gifted that one. Yeah, I see that. Yeah, I can see why Aaron would find that an odd picture. You'd almost say like, well, with a picture like it should be called the crying dragon and the weird mouse with the sword.
Yeah. There's a comic book series that had to be inspired by Chronicles of Narnia called Mouse Guard, where there's all these mice with swords running around fighting each other and stuff. And that's what I'm thinking of when I see that image.
Yeah.
It makes me think.
Oh, go ahead.
How much of Reepicheep was in Prince Caspian? Because I feel like he was just more prominent in the movie Prince Caspian than he was in the books. Because
he's there, but it's not nowhere near as much as Voyage of the Dawn Treader. He's much more of a character. This one.
It's something I never thought of until you said, "Oh, there's just this this dragon and this mouse with a sword."
Yeah, definitely an odd book cover. I'm just like, what? But it got me intrigued. Like, what is happening in this book? So, so let's see, what's after the island with the pool? Is this next to the Dream Island?
I believe so. Let me see. You've got.
I can pull back up.
Lone Islands, Adventures of Eustace. Is it I think it's the Dream Island and then the Dark Island.
Yeah, where they meet. I think one of the lords. He's like, turn back. You do not want to be here because all your dreams are going to become reality. And at first they're excited, and then they're like, "Oh wait, we all have nightmares. Why are we going to this to this island?" So yeah, I think that I thought that island was pretty cool.
The old man that was Ramandu, right? Or am I jumping ahead?
The island where dreams come true. Lord Roop is his name.
I'm jumping ahead. Yeah. I think Ramadu's island actually last. Now that I think about it.
Yeah, Ramadu's the fallen star, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Is this the book? Because I'm getting this one and Silver Chair mixed up. It must be this book where they encounter the creatures that are invisible. I think they're ugly or something, and they have to break the magician's spell. Like Lucy has to go look at the magician's book.
Yes.
And she gets tempted by the book, and she's like, she's eavesdropping on some of her schoolmates about what they really think about her and stuff. And I think Aslan like chastises her about it, like, you shouldn't have done that. I might be misremembering all this, but I think this is that book where that happens.
It looks like that we're having some troubles with Daniel.
Oh, are you back, Daniel? I think we've lost Daniel.
Uh-oh.
Okay. So while he's working on that, does that sound right though, Caleb? What I was saying? Okay.
Yes, absolutely. yes, it is.
Okay. I was just like, am I making this up? Because it got dead silent.
No. You are correct. So the Dream Island and the Dark Island are the same. That's what I was getting confused about, because I was like, I thought the Dark Island was last, but the Dream Island and the Dark Island are the same island with Lord Roop, and then Ramandu's island is the last island.
Okay, let me try removing him and adding him back.
Sure. Yeah.
While we try to fix that.
Yeah, because I definitely want to. I definitely don't want to move on to the ending until we can get him.
Yeah. Any luck, Daniel? Can you hear us? No. Weird. So Daniel, if you can hear me, you might try to re-click the link, exit out, and start over. Let's see. I think he's texting me. Please pause while we're having technical difficulties again.
So Orc said something a little bit ago that I didn't know, which is that Warwick Davis played Reepicheep in the BBC series.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
I would assume that he was just wearing a costume, or was
Maybe.
it a puppet? I don't know.
Well, you know what's funny? So, do you know who plays him in the movies?
I do not.
Simon Pegg.
Yeah, I could see that. The audio version that I heard was had a very high pitched voice for Reepicheep. So, Daniel, can you hear us?
I can. I'm back.
Oh,
Okay.
whoa.
You were a little crackly, so let's see.
Could you hear us while we were talking just then?
No, you cut out probably about like, I don't know, 2 or 3 minutes ago.
Okay.
Oh, gotcha.
So your microphone is super crackly.
Okay.
So I don't know if it's not plugged in or the settings are wrong.
Let me see.
I'm looking up a picture of Warwick Davis right now because I'm really curious as to what it looks like. Oh my. Okay. Wow.
Well, you gotta remember it's a BBC production, so it's
No, yeah. I mean, ooh. Let me pull this up.
Are we still having problems with my mic?
yeah, it's still real crackly. You might try the link one more time, or try unplugging the microphone, and plugging it back in.
Okay. Give me 1 second. I'm gonna come
Okay.
out.
So let's take a look at this. Look at him.
Oh, he's like a Chuck E. Cheese character or something.
Oh man, is that the Five Nights at Freddy movie?
You know what it reminds me of. I doubt you remember this, Caleb, because this was probably before your time. How about now, Daniel?
Testing 1, 2, 3.
Much
Yay!
better. Okay.
Praise God. Awesome.
Okay.
Ooh,
what
yeah.
were you saying?
No. Go ahead.
Yeah. So this reminds me of a show that was on when I was a kid. Zoobilee Zoo. I'm sure that's way before your time.
Does not
Caleb.
ring a bell at all.
I will pull up a picture, but he would fit right in with whoops, wrong button. So yeah, while I'm pulling that up, we were talking about there was the island with the invisible creatures. Yeah, this show, Zoobilee Zoo, I watched when I was a kid. Yeah, Reepicheep. Warwick Davis would fit right in there as Reepicheep. So, yeah, but there was an island where there were invisible creatures, and they all said they were ugly, and they had to get Lucy to go upstairs to find the magician's book, and she was she was getting tempted by the spells in the book. I thought that whole section was very interesting. And she would forget. I think it was interesting
because I don't think we've seen Lucy be tempted by anything yet. In this series, she's always kind of been like this golden child, so it's interesting to see her not kind of fall, but like everyone stumbles.
Yes.
Yeah. And she talks about, if I recall, again, I might be getting this mixed up, that she was reading this amazing story, and then she would forget the story as soon as she finished reading it. And it's kind of like it's almost like she was seeing like Revelations, the book of Revelations, like here's the future, but you're not ready for this yet. We're not. you're reading ahead,
right?
You know.
She got an early copy of The Last Battle.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. And then she gets she uses some spell to eavesdrop on some classmates, and then Aslan like chastises her for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought all this was very interesting, and then what did you say the creatures were called again?
They're monopods. I'm trying to remember what the actual. Hold on one sec here. The Dufflepods.
Dufflepods.
So
Yeah, Duffer's Island. That's what it's called.
Yeah, and so they're like a dwarf type creature, but they only have 1 foot, and it's a big foot. It's very the protuberance is very large, so they can like hop and jump like bunnies or rabbits or something. And so they make this really loud pounding or booming sound when they hit the ground. And so the children, or Lucy and I forget whoever's with her, hear this sort of thump sound everywhere around them whenever the Dufflepods show up, but they don't know, they can't see them because they've been made invisible through the wizard's curse or spell. And so they just hear this just plump, plump, plump all around. And then the voices, they can hear them speaking. But yeah, that's again, side missions, just really, really
Yeah.
wild little things going on in the backdrop of Narnia's story.
Yeah. So this part I don't remember too well. The Ramadou Island with the one that's the fallen star. I think there's like 3 lords that are asleep.
Yes.
And so to wake them, they're going to continue on to the land of Aslan, and someone's going to have to remain there.
Yes.
And during this journey, we see the mer people, and then the land of Aslan. So I was taking the land of Aslan to represent heaven, and this was reminding me of the story where I might be getting this mixed up, where Elijah, who is it that's carried up to heaven in the chariot?
Elijah.
Okay, I didn't have it right. Yeah, so that's what the Reepicheep part reminded me of.
Sees him. Elisha, his Padawan learner, his Jedi in training, watches him leave the planet in the chariot of fire. So that's what this reminded me of when Reepicheep continues on here.
Speaking of Ramandu, I don't know if this is a spoiler. Do they bring up who Rillian's mother is in Silverchair?
If they did, I don't remember. They may have. I may have just missed it when I was listening to it.
I mean, if it's a spoiler, it's a spoiler. But do you remember that on Ramandu's island, he actually lives with his daughter?
Who does?
Ramandu lives with his daughter on the.
Yeah.
That's right.
Caspian marries her, and that's really.
Oh yeah. That is yes.
That is in the Silverchair.
Yes.
Okay.
That's the spoiler I was trying to, when we were talking about Susan, the brief love affair that never goes anywhere. Why that doesn't work is because you have this part of Voyage where he marries Ramandu's daughter, and if Susan had ended up with him, then that would change who Rillian's mom was. So anyway, anyway.
Yeah. So. And then I believe this is the Lion and the Lamb scene where Aslan appears to them as a lamb and then turns into the lion. Yeah, if I'm remembering right.
If I'm not mistaken, I want to say that's before they get to Aslan's country. When they're on, there's like a little spit of land that they sort of land on, or in fact, I don't even remember if there's actually a spit. I know there's one in the film's rendering. I'm trying to remember if there's one in the book, because prior to Aslan's country, there's this long sort of stretch of the ocean where it's just like lilies, like lily pad kind of stuff growing up out of the water, and the water's really sweet. It's really good to taste.
Yeah, and they get younger when they drink the water.
Yeah,
they get stronger.
Right. Yes, yeah, that's right. It's invigorating, almost like a fountain of youth part of the ocean as you get closer to heaven. And so they get through there.
I believe that is after Ramandu's Island. I think it's like right before they get to Aslan's country, or the entrance to Aslan's country.
Yeah, right. And so in any case, they get to a point, whether they're on a small island or not, and I want to say that's where that transformation happens. So let's see here. And again, functioning as because Lucy talks to it. She says, she asks the lamb, "Is this the way to Aslan's country?" And that's when the lamb transforms, right? And we get the Revelation 7 imagery of the lamb and the lion and all, or Revelation 5, lamb and lion stuff. So, yeah.
And I think we're getting close to the part where Aslan once again informs the children, this is your last jaunt in Narnia, Lucy and Edmund, and they're not too happy about it.
But that's, I am known by another name.
Yes,
yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Which, think about this, because we don't hear the conversation between Aslan, Peter, and Susan.
Yes.
I would assume that he said the same thing there too.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, like, this is just Tripping Orc said it. This book does have a great ending.
Awesome ending. And side missions are fun. I love
yes,
yes. I'm a huge fan. I'm not knocking that. Purely just literary, just distinguishing is all. But yeah, no, I love it.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, one of the reasons I love Voyage of the Dawn Treader, there's the Eustace story in particular. To me, is in my mind obviously reminiscent of the story that we find in the Book of Daniel with Nebuchadnezzar, because in the story, I think it's chapter 4 of Daniel, where he transforms into this beast or this creature, whatever it is, nails and hair like a bird, whatever it is, this like lycanth thing, and it's through that process that Nebuchadnezzar then repents, and he's then granted his humanity back. He transforms back into a man. And so like that's one of those like weird stories in the Bible, like usually don't get talked about or preached or referenced in church, that to me is like heavily endemic of what's going on in Eustace's story, because it's through that transformation that he doesn't just get his humanity back, but he's a different person. His character has been changed, and he becomes a good guy, and so he becomes a protagonist, a hero. So yeah, I just wanted to make that reference before we got off Dawn Treader, because hooray for side missions.
So let me ask you all this. I have been very vocal about who my personal favorite character is, and I've also been very vocal about what my favorite book is, that being Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. I love Edmund. And Daniel, because you've read past this, you can go ahead and move past, of the 7, what's your favorite? But of course, for my uncle, of the ones that you've read so far.
Right.
So favorite book and favorite character.
Okay. This is probably going to be controversial.
Okay.
And also difficult. The character one's the hard one, because I love so many characters in the Narnia saga. I love Aslan. That's an obvious one. Everybody likes Aslan. The Pevensey kids are great, but I think probably my favorite, just the character, he's so different, and I just love him for, there's all kinds of reasons, is Puddleglum.
Okay.
I really like Puddleglum is my guy.
I love that.
Yeah, so much. And he was when I first read Silverchair, that was one of the things that like kept me in the book. Was like I wanted to know what Puddleglum thought of whatever was going on. And his perspective, it's oh my goodness, it's so perfect. And
so they're making like a live action Zelda, and you know how like Link always has like this sidekick character, whether it's Navi or Fi or someone to put. something like Puddle Gum kind of gives off that vibe of just like keeping you on track. Hey, here's where the quest is at.
Yeah, absolutely. Keep it on track. He is. It's so cool because he's the adult character, despite the fact that kids think that they're being adults, right? And they think they're being practical and sensible. It's really Puddle Glum's being sensible, but he's so honest about, just like, and again, it comes off as like depressing the way that the kids receive it. He's like, well, we'll try a fire, but it's probably going to get put out. The rain's going to come down and the food's not going to be that good. I don't know, his disposition. I just love his approach. And yet, in spite of him having what to everybody else is a very glum, pun intended, look on life, he is still staying true to the course, and he's resilient in his faith. That's what's crazy. Like, you get to the very end, and he becomes this like philosopher, right, where he's debating with the witch, with the lady, the queen, the green lady, and he's saying, even if it's almost like, for me reading it, it was almost like Lewis used Puddle Glum to voice his perspective as an Oxford Don, because in the story he's making it's a philosophical argument for the case for God and for the case for belief and faith, and in spite of what's going on in the world and claims that other people are making, sort of a naturalistic claim, because that's what the green lady, she's making this natural claim, like, oh, we can't see the sun and the sky and Narnia. That's all made up. That's in your head. You've imagined all this. And then for Puddle Glum, he says, it may be that our world is imaginary and yours is the real one, but I would rather believe in that world because our world can lick your world hollow. Like, dude, I love that scene. It's And and then as far as, so that's probably favorite character. And then I think my favorite book, just because it's so different and so off the beaten path from the other narratives around the Pevensies and Caspian, is The Horse and His Boy.
Okay.
I really love The Horse and His Boy. It was so, when I read that story, it was so, it captivated me because it was so different. There was nothing in it that I was expecting or anticipating. So it was very refreshing, I think, from what I had come to expect from Narnia, which I loved. I love the Narnia saga with the other books, but Horse and His Boy was really just fresh and different, and I liked it. So
okay,
yeah.
For me, this might be recency bias because I just read these. It's either Dawn Treader or Silver Chair.
Okay,
was the favorite.
It had to be one of those four, yeah. If that's all you read.
yeah. And then my favorite character, I mean, it's a kind of a cheap answer, is Aslan. There's times in these books where I get bored. I'm just like, okay, when's Aslan going to show up? I'm just waiting for him to show up and do something.
Right.
So, I mean, for right now, that's my answer. It might change once I finish all the books. But yeah, I think that's my answer right now. So
okay.
Cool. Is there anything else you want to talk about while we're wrapping up? I think we've hit the first three books pretty good. Our next show about Narnia will be January 7th. So that'll give me a nice month to finish reading these.
To finish reading the story, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I've really enjoyed this discussion. Daniel, you're welcome anytime.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah. Let's see what else I was going to say there. Yeah, technical difficulties aside, I think this has been a really fun conversation. I hope the audience has enjoyed it.
Absolutely, yeah. I enjoyed it.
Yeah. Caleb, do you know what we're doing next week? I know we had kicked around some ideas.
I think you said you wanted to do like the Forgotten Cartoons. You've been wanting to do that one for a while.
Okay.
It's
either going to be that, or we talked about doing what Christmas lists or how to shop for your pop culture nerd in your life, and us just recommend some different pop culture products. So Daniel's not familiar with our show. We try to mix it up where 1 week we do like comic books or novels, then we'll do a video game show, and then we'll do a movie or TV show, and so on. So So yeah, we'll figure it out. But until then, I hope everybody joins us next Sunday at 4 o'clock Eastern. I've been Final Monkey.
I'm Caleb.
I'm Daniel.
And we'll catch you next time in the Shark Pond. See ya.
See ya.
Bye, guys.